Good morning, everyone. We welcome you to the regular meeting for the Board of Trustees for the Utah Transit Authority. Today's Wednesday, October the 21st, and I'm joined by my two colleagues, Beth Holbrook and Kent Millington, and I'm Carlton Christensen, Chair of the Authority. We'd, just as a reminder, our public comments were received previously and electronically distributed, but we certainly welcome public comment through our website and in general board email and other ways that are available on these issues and other issues affecting the agency. Before we begin, I'll ask Jen Osler if she'll read the statement for electronic meetings determination. Morning, Jenna.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. This is the electronic meeting determination statement signed by the Chair of the Board. Consistent with provisions of the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act, specifically Utah Code 52-4-207, Section 4, and acting in my capacity as the Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Utah Transit Authority, I hereby make the following written determinations in support of my decision to hold and convene electronic meetings of the UTA Board without a physical anchor location. 1, conducting board and board committee meetings with an anchor location that is physically accessible for members of the public to attend in person presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. 2, this determination is based upon the following facts, among others. A, the COVID-19 pandemic is ongoing and significant, and continued community person-to-person virus transmission continues to occur in the state of Utah. And B, federal, state, and local health authorities have adopted guidelines for the general public and businesses which encourage institutions and individuals to take precautions, including limiting in-person interactions and recommending increased virtual interactions. This written determination takes effect on October 7, 2020, and is effective until midnight on November 6, 2020, no more than 30 days after the effective date of this declaration, and may be reissued by future written determinations of the Board of the Chair of the Board at that or any other appropriate time. Dated this 30th day of September 2020, Carlton J. Christensen, Chair of the Board of Trustees.
Thanks, Jana, for doing that. With that, we'll move forward to our Safety First Minute, and we welcome our Director, Sheldon Shaw. Good morning, Sheldon.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, trustees. Thank you. This time of year, our thoughts turn to Christmas decorations, and oftentimes that includes climbing on our roofs. And getting your feet off the ground and onto a ladder is oftentimes pretty dangerous. You should probably think twice about that. If you are going to climb on a ladder and get up on your roof, make sure you look at the manufacturer's instructions. Make sure you make sure the area is not slippery either for your feet or for the ladder. As you climb up and down, you need to maintain 3 points of contact, meaning 2 feet in one hand or 2 hands and 1 foot on the ladder at all times. You need to face the ladder as you get up and down off of your roof. And so appreciate the opportunity, Chair. Be careful with your Christmas decorations.
Thank you, Sheldon. You're reaffirming my recent decision to have permanent lighting installed along the front soffit of my house. I decided I'm getting a little too old to get up on that ladder, so Warren Council, thank you. We'll go to our consent agenda, which is approval of our minutes from October the 7th. With that, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I second that.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Kent to approve. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. With that brings us to our agency report, and we welcome this morning our Executive Director, Carolyn Gannott. Good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning. Just a couple items I wanted to cover today. One is on our 2021 budget public engagement opportunities. I wanted to go over that a little bit. As we continue to work on the 2021 budget, UTA has established public engagement for this process. Members of the community will be able to share their input during our virtual public open house on Tuesday, November 10th at 6 p.m. We're also holding a public hearing, which will be held in person at the UTA Frontline headquarters on Wednesday, November 11th in the evening. And information will be available beginning at 5:30 p.m. and the hearing will begin at 6 p.m. UTA's open public comment period will be held from November 11th through December 11th. And members of the community will have the opportunity to review the UTA 2021 tentative budget online or in person as requested, and provide comments and feedback via email, mail, phone, or online after the tentative 2021 budget has been presented to the UTA's Board of Trustees. So I look forward to sharing more in the upcoming weeks as we move through this 2021 budget planning process. Are there any questions on that item?
No.
Okay. And then just a quick, quick piece of good news is that we were awarded a suicide prevention research grant from the FTA Safety Research and Demonstration Program. This is one that Lamont had put forward before he left UTA. And so we're very excited to have that award that will help identify strategies to prevent and mitigate suicides on our system. As part of this project, UTA will be working with Operation Lifesaver Utah, the Utah Department of Health Services, and the Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health on developing educational messaging and community outreach. It also has improvements along our rail corridors. The grant is for $244,000, I think. Mary DeLoretto will be sharing more detailed information, as well as Ron Kendall next week at the October 28th board meeting, where we'll be asking the Board of Trustees to approve the acceptance of this grant. So it's just a nice piece of good news, and I'm happy to see this as it's crucial to our initiative on suicide prevention.
That is great news, Carolyn, and great work on the staff. Any questions, though, from the board on those? Not seeing any. Carolyn, anything else?
That's it.
Okay, well, thank you, and thanks to our engagement staff and getting information out on our budget and getting feedback from the public. That'll be very helpful. With that, we'll move to approval of our UTA Affairs policy, and we welcome back Monica Morton. Good morning, Monica.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, trustees. I'm happy to be here today. If you can advance to the next slide, I would like to go over the sections of the FAIR policy to review with you today as part of my presentation. And I'll start with the purpose. So the purpose of the FAIR policy is to guide the staff in the administration operation of the FAIR system. If you will remember from prior presentations, the FAIR system is the combined elements of pricing, policy, and payment. So the 3 Ps. Next, we will talk about the policy outline. So it includes several different areas. The first one is the FAIR system. The next one is the pricing structure. It also includes fare adjustments, talks about complimentary passes, special pricing, and then fare administration, which includes fare collection, payment, media, and validation and enforcement. So this is a general outline of the areas of the policy. Next slide, please. First, our fare system will generate revenue through the passenger fares to cover a reasonable portion of the operating expenses. The second key component is we will set a fare box recovery ratio and cost of collection target. And last, we will use data and analytics to inform decisions. Next slide, please. Policy values, these are the guiding principles that direct our future strategy. You've heard me talk about them before. I'll go over them. They're simple and easy. The fare structure is simple and easy for riders to understand. That's really important to us. Convenient. Fare payment maximizes the convenience of paying fares. It's seamless. Fare payment facilitates seamless travel between all modes of transportation. And that's important as we see different modes of transportation pop up over the years. Flexibility anticipates and implements innovative, cost-effective technology. Equitable eliminates barriers that limit access to transportation for disadvantaged rider groups. Efficient focuses on improved operational efficiency. And last, sustainable supports long-term financial planning and sustainable transit services. So, like I said, we'll use these policy values as guiding principle. I will report annually to the Board of Trustees on metrics, and then the Executive Director in cooperation with myself and the CFO, we will also put together, develop and implement SOPs that will help us execute this policy. Next slide, please. So the pricing structure, I just want to share a couple of different things we have in the policy regarding the pricing structure. So we have mention of the base rate, which is $250. We also have mention of being able to charge a premium rate for longer distances or amenities or things higher cost to operate the service. We also identify in the policy riders that can ride free. We talk about discounts in the policy, and then we also in the policy, the last one, we allow for transfers. So the pricing structure will provide a time frame to complete a trip that includes travel on more than one mode. Next slide, please. Fare adjustments. So this is another key area of guidance for staff, and that's being able to adjust fares. So we'll look at those every 2 years and expect the adjustment to support our long-term financial planning. We also expect it to be explainable, modest, and so there's several things that we take into consideration when looking at that. Also, as part of the analysis, it will occur a minimum every 2 years. And what we'll do as part of that is we'll create a fare change proposal, and this proposal will take into account any proposed adjustments. We'll do analysis, we'll compare peer agencies and other transit mode pricing. And so we'll take a look at all of that and we'll recommend to the board what that pricing should be and have backup for that. And then of course, the last 2 bullets, preparing the Title VI analysis and the public outreach, which both of these are important efforts and they are key to being successful in any type of fare adjustment. So if as a result of those anything needs to change, we will reevaluate any modifications to the proposal and make those changes as appropriate. Next slide, please. Complimentary passes. We have a section in the policy discussing complimentary passes, which we issue for small and short-term events. We also issue them for internal use and in instances where we receive sponsorships. And all of the sponsorships and passes which exceed $5,000 in value will be brought to you for your approval. Next slide, please. So a couple of more sections before I conclude. This one is special pricing. So special pricing includes things like pilots and promotions. If we want to test a concept or an idea, if we want to incentivize riders or increase awareness of some of our routes, then that will come through for approval as a pilot or promotion. We also have instances where we do bulk purchase pricing. These would be large quantity purchases for groups. Often they're date specific and it could be an event. They are usually fully or partially subsidized, and we will have detailed SOP talking about how we set up the pricing and administration of those bulk purchase pricing. And then last is our past programs. And our past programs have 4 main categories, but essentially these are our eco and our ed programs. We have several reasons for offering them, and that does include strengthening relationships and incentivizing our partners to subsidize. And we have a really good, strong partner group right now. Next slide, please. And the last section then of the policy simply talks about fare administration. And this includes collecting fares, the type of media that we use on our system, validating and enforcing fares with our operators and our officers, and then paying fares. And so just in summary, the last slide, the fare policy is going to provide a very crucial framework for operating our fare system. And it establishes guiding principles that have and will direct future strategy and decisions, because we have a lot of initiatives that we'd like to implement to improve things. And last, it sets the stage for the implementation of procedures necessary to execute the policy, of which several SOPs will be coming down the pipeline to provide greater information on some of the more high-level policy sections in this document. So with that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. And if not, then I would request that you approve the policy at this time.
Thank you, Monica. And it should be noted that we previously had a fairly in-depth discussion on our fare policy. Questions, however, from the board? Any?
Monica, this is Beth. Thank you so much for the opportunity to kind of like go over this for this past, it seems like it's been at least a year, and I'm sure it has in some ways for you. But having these discussions and fine tuning all of this information with the goal of making sure that we're connecting with as many potential riders and addressing their needs and keeping it simple has really been just a tremendous effort by you and your staff. And I wanted to thank you. And I'm really appreciative of all of this work. And that I really didn't have a question. I just wanted to make that comment because it always is an evolving science to try to figure out where costs should be, how that service should look and everything else. And I think you've done a great job. So wanted to thank you for that and your staff.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't have a question either, just a comment that I know that Monica and her staff have been working pretty diligently on this for quite a while. And I think the results speak for themselves. It's comprehensive and I think very useful as we move forward. So congratulations and thanks, Monica, for the good work.
Thank you, Trustee. I appreciate it.
I would certainly echo the comments of my colleagues. With that, I would entertain a motion for approval of this policy.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the UTA policy 02.03 on fares as we have been presented over the last several months and summarized here this morning.
I will echo that by saying I second.
Thank you, Kent. Motion by Kent, seconded by Beth. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Again, thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
We're still up, though, for item number 6, which is a resolution adopting the actual fare rate and types of fare media for the agency. Monica?
I am up again, yes. So this will be the last presentation. This is the actual resolution. And just to give you an idea here where we're at in our plan overview, which we're down to the last couple of boxes here. And today we're approving the fare policy, but we're also through this resolution adopting the rates, the specific rates and the amounts. After that, then we'll have our final box, which will be us working from now until December 1st to get all of the changes made and to implement the fare changes, which will go into effect starting December 1st. So next slide, please. To give you the background or a little bit of background, just a couple of things. The Public Transit District Act, that's what empowers you to fix the fare rates. The board policy also empowers you to set a base rate, and then the fares policy that we just approved creates the fare rate pricing structure. And currently we're being, the resolution in place to govern the current rates is R 2011-03-02. Next slide, please. So this new resolution, it will adopt the new fare rates. It'll rescind rates adopted in R 2011 that we're under now. So we'll be on, we'll now have these new rates. And then the other thing that this resolution will do, which is the third bullet, will rescind the reduced fares agreement. And that was adopted in R 2018-0607. So we'll bring to you another resolution in the next few weeks for our reduced fare agreements and continue to bring those to you individually. So all of that resolution will be rescinded as well. And then, of course, the new rates, and you've seen this slide before, but we have several different rates that are being changed. Also on the next slide, those in green show a decrease, those in red show a slight increase in the last slide. So with these three slides that comprises the pricing, there is an attachment also in the resolution. I would like to point out in the resolution as well, there is adoption of fare media. So we've identified specific fare media that the agency will be using. And then the last slide, as a result of these changes in the pricing in this resolution, we're moving towards our key outcomes, which I shared with you earlier. And with that, I will ask for any questions on the resolution adopting the rates.
Thank you, Monica. Any questions from the board on the rates. I know we've also reviewed this previously, so it's not our first introduction to them. Not seeing any questions, so with seeing no questions, I would entertain a motion on this resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve R 2020-10-02, the resolution adopting the fare rates and types of fare media of the agency.
Second.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Kent. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Millington,
Aye.
Trustee Holbrook,
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, and thank you again, Monica, for that effort. Why don't we move forward to the next item, which is a resolution authorizing the execution of Amendment 1 to Addendum 2 and Addendum 3 to the Salt Lake City Transit Master Plan Interlocal Agreement, a 2020-21 Frequent Transit Network Routes, which is a mouthful. Laura Hanson, do you want to help us understand what it is we're considering today?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And yes, it is a bit of a mouthful, and the process to get to this point was equally complicated. So I'm happy to have a chance to come talk to you all about this today. It's taken us a few months to get on your agenda, and I'm finally ready and excited to be walking you through this. If you could go to the next slide for me, please. Oh, let's see. Is there a presentation to accompany it? No, darn. Okay. We had a presentation that I was ready to share with you all, but I will just kind of explain it and walk it through in person. So we had back in March of 2019, you adopted a master interlocal cooperation agreement with Salt Lake City that basically laid the framework for a partnership for them to sponsor transit service. That interlocal agreement kind of just laid out the ground rules for the partnership, but it didn't actually authorize the exchange of any funds. Late that same month, we actually adopted Addendum 1. So the Master ILA will have addenda. Each addenda would be the piece that actually authorizes the transfer of funds and the specifics of the sponsorship. So Addendum 1 was mobilization for additional sponsored service on routes 2, 9, and 21. So that allowed us to hire and train operators, procure new buses that we needed, and prepare to be able to be ready to provide this new service. Addendum 2 was the actual sponsorship of service. So after we had mobilized, we were ready to actually provide the service, and that addendum allowed the city to give us, or us to receive money from the city for that sponsored service on routes 2, 9, and 21. Today, we are coming with you with 2 additional addenda. Actually, one is an amendment to Addendum 2. So this, during the last year of service with Salt Lake City, the pandemic hit, and we reduced our service on the Salt Lake City sponsored routes, as well as on many other routes in light of the pandemic. And so we cut our service back to about 56%. And so of that contract, we had 8 months at our original mileage and 4 months at a reduced mileage level. We also have built within this Master ILA some language in there that calls for an annual fuel true-up. The idea here was fuel prices are fairly volatile, and we didn't want to end up having either the city paying too much or UTA not covering our actual costs. So we included this fuel true-up piece. The actual cost of fuel on these routes, because some were electric buses, some were CNG buses, we calculated that it was actually $1.65 per gallon rather than the $2.50 that we provided or we had budgeted for at the beginning. And the fuel, the vehicles were actually slightly less efficient than we had planned, 4.82 gallons per mile as opposed to 5. And so the fuel true-up resulted in a $107,404 credit back to Salt Lake City. And then when we figured in the reduced mileage for during the period of the pandemic, we calculated a credit of this to the city of $462,233. So you add those two together, and it's a total of $569,637 that we would be not charging the city for this last year of service. So that's amendment 1 to addendum 2. You can see why this is a little complicated. So we worked that all out. There's a lot of backup information.
Laura,
yes, please go ahead.
I have a question for you.
I apologize. I didn't want you to get too far into your next section before I ask this question.
No problem.
Can you just tell me again? So what we're doing with this, in essence, is we are truing up the total numbers, incorporating our reduction in service due to COVID, and then we are using this amendment to actually give Salt Lake City the cost structures based on the cost per gallon, et cetera, and we give them one-time annual invoice, if you will. Am I basically getting that correct?
So they prepaid for all of the service, or they didn't prepay, but at this point they have paid for the full year of service. And so this would be a credit back to them based on service that we didn't provide and lower fuel costs than we actually had budgeted at the beginning. It would be a one-time thing, not something that we do every year, just this one time. We would just take this, what we owe them as a credit, and we would deduct it from future invoices that they would pay. So we're not actually returning money to them. We're just giving them a credit on future invoices. Does that help?
That helps me tremendously. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then addendum 3. So this is the second piece of it. Addendum 3 just extends the service, the sponsorship for another term. So we each addenda is an annual agreement that is necessary because the city can't encumber future city councils, and so it has to be an annual renewal of the sponsored service. And so they are proposing to renew the service. We have found that some of the service on Route 2, specifically on weekdays, is meeting our current service standards. And so we're proposing within this that we reduce the number of miles that the city is sponsoring on that service the UTA would be picking up a piece of what they would have sponsored previously. I will note that the city and UTA have both agreed that we need to formalize that process a little bit more. We had a lot of questions about it. This is the first time we've ever done an agreement like this before. There's not a lot of precedent around the country for us to follow. And we knew that we would need to be working out some details moving forward. So something that you can anticipate in the future is probably an amendment to the Master Interlocal Cooperation Agreement that would further articulate and define how we calculate whether or not a route is meeting our baseline service or not. And then if we find that we actually needed to include this at the end, we'll true that up at the end of this term and the beginning of the next one again. I know this is very complicated.
Laura, again, sorry. So in essence, what you're saying is that because this is an annual agreement, which I totally understand due to the structure of the city council, but we are basically in essence going to be having these addendums to true up any time that there could be significant changes in the service or in other components to that. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. So we'll have an annual addenda, and then at the end of each term, we will true things up to make sure that we're being fair to one another, and that we're not charging the city for more than we should be, nor is UTA picking up more risk or more cost than we should be. And so we're refining our process as we go along, and so we'll continue to find ways to true things up and make it more clear.
Laura, we're likely to see in the future an amendment to the prior year addendum and a new addendum, you know, whether they're at the same time or not, but we would probably see those annually. Does that sound right?
Yep, can anticipate something coming every single year on this, yes.
I do remember in the original agreement, in their master plan, they looked to other frequent travel networks, and the idea, at least in my memory, was when they got to our service level, they might roll those funds over to another frequent transit line because they wanted to obviously expand it in their full master plan. I'm sure they're hitting the same financial challenges that some of us are. Is that still their intent? Do we have any sense of, or are they just staying focused on these 3 routes?
That's a great question, Mr. Chair. It is the intent of Salt Lake City to sponsor additional routes moving forward in the future. We're hoping that perhaps by the end of 2021 or the beginning of 2022, that they would be ready to sponsor additional service. The next corridors they're looking at are 600 North and 1000 North in Rose Park, and also 400 South, kind of crossing the entire city. So I know those are the next corridors that they're interested in sponsoring. They're waiting to see what their financial resources look like everybody else. I will note that if a route meets our service standards and they feel like their subsidy could go elsewhere, UTA we have to have the resources to provide that additional service ourselves. There's lots of things that we would like to be doing that we know would be wildly successful, but we don't have the resources to do it. So just because it meets our service standards does not automatically mean that we can afford to absorb that. And those are some of the details that we will be working out over this next year and coming back to you with later this year or early next year.
Good, thank you.
Yes, I apologize that my presentation didn't make it to you all, which would have helped kind of explain this a little bit more. But just to wrap up for Addendum 3, the total amount that we are asking the city to provide us to sponsor the service, continue sponsorship on these routes, is $4,290,092. And so that would be Addendum 3. So just in summary, Addendum 2, Amendment 1 to Addendum 2 is the true up for last year's service, including both the pandemic and some fuel and mileage reconciliation. Addendum 3 is extending the service for another year.
Questions from the board?
I did have a question about how I do know that there are some of those routes, and I'm not sure, but I think it could be one of the number 2 or the number 9, but they had to have actually increased service above their, or after COVID increased service. I hope that makes sense. Does that get calculated in this as well?
I'm not sure I followed. Would you restate that one more time, please?
You bet. Sorry, I was like thinking in my head, it doesn't always come out. So we have obviously had to take steps for social distancing, and I wondered if when we were adding additional buses to accommodate the social distancing component, does that calculate into this at all?
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, we haven't included that. We feel like, I think that's part of doing business and providing good service and safe service to our customers. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Laura, I did have one other question, and that is, I'm assuming when we restored service back on August 23rd, that these lines basically went back to their prior level of service, that there's not a reduction on any of them anymore. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. They're back to their pre-COVID levels.
Okay. Other questions from the board? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on this resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve our 2020-10-03, the resolution authorizing execution of Amendment 1 to Addendum 2 and Addendum 3 to the Salt Lake City Master Plan Interlocal Agreement for 2020-2021, the core bus, frequent transit network routes.
Second?
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Kent. I'll ask for a roll call on the resolution.
Trustee Holbrook,
Aye.
Trustee Millington,
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is unanimous.
Thanks, Laura, and to other staff. I know it was a team effort to get to the bottom line, so thank you.
Thank you.
We'll next move on to item 7 on our agenda, which is contracts, disbursements, and grants. And the first item up is a contract for data backup and recovery systems replacement with Cache Valley Electric. And with that, we'll turn to Dan Harmuth and Tom Smith. Good morning, Dan.
All right. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, trustees. As the chairman stated, I also have Tom Smith with me, who's the manager over our network and operations. So he can answer any questions that you may have that I cannot answer. So I request that the board approves the purchase order with Cache Valley Electric in the amount of $349,811.41. This purchase order includes the hardware, software, licenses, and 3 years of maintenance for the new data backup recovery system. This is being purchased through the NASPO state contract AR-233. The current Dell EMC data backup system is going end of life soon, and it currently doesn't meet our storage needs any longer. Tom's team, the network team, evaluated upgrading the current Dell EMC system, but with a high cost of $274,000 to upgrade it. But then the system is going end of support in 2022, so that option was eliminated. Then Tom's team evaluated multiple vendor solutions. He performed a proof of concept on premise in our own network for the top 3 systems that they evaluated for a few months, and they came up with the final selection, which is the Cohesity data backup system. The system is then now being procured through Cache Valley Electric as a third-party providing vendor that is able to sell this through the NASPO state contract. If you have any questions on this, Tom or myself can answer any questions you may have.
Ken?
Yeah, Dan, I have a question. Will this backup system and recovery system be operable both in the Salt Lake Data Center and the Southern Utah backup system?
Yes. And Tom, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yes, the design was to have the same set, one at the downtown data center and the one down at our DR location, just like we do the current Albemarle solution.
Okay, so the cost covers for both systems for those 3 years?
Yes, both sides.
Okay, both sides, yeah. All right, thank you.
And I think, Dan or Tom, you may have answered my question. When I think of Cache Valley Electric, I think of somebody running conduits and looking in boxes and things. But it sounds like this is more of a hardware, software kind of implementation. Is the breadth of their service just that broad, and it includes these kinds of items, or why a electric company? I guess is my question.
Well, I've been here 3 years, and Cache Valley Electric, what I've seen, also provides our Cisco networking gear. And so aside from just being a company that does electrical work, they also did a lot of work for us on our UVX system, installing a lot of the electrical on that system. But they also have another arm to the organization where they have a team that provides network type consulting services. They have partnerships with Cisco and other major networking gear providers, and so they sell their equipment, and they also provide consulting services and sell other gear as well. And they also have the contract with the state under the NASPO umbrella to be able to be a third-party reseller of a myriad of IT technology, hardware and software.
And so my assumption is that while they've been pre-contracted with the state, that the value for what we're buying is still a good value, regardless. Like you wouldn't get necessarily a better price going outside the state contract for the same product.
Tom, you want to answer that one?
The state contract was the best pricing when we estimated out, and then when we got final bids back.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that. I mean, generally it is, and but I assume that was in your assessment. So, any other questions on this contract?
I just wanted to know, like, when will this start to be implemented? When will the hardware and everything become operational?
Our goal is to have it installed and up and running by the end of the year.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, I would entertain a motion on this contract.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the contract that has been explained for the data backup and recovery system replacement with Cache Valley Electric.
Second.
I have a motion from Kent, seconded by Beth. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Dan and Tom, on that one. And it looks like, Dan, you're still up on IMB, which is a contract for Laserfish software maintenance with Cities Digital, Inc.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Tom, for that support. So on the Laserfish software maintenance contract renewal, we request approval for the Laserfish maintenance contract with Cities Digital for 1 year. That includes 4 optional year renewals for a total of $313,223.70 or $33.70, which would include a total of 5 years if UTA exercised all of the 4 optional renewals. Laserfish is our records management system. We implemented Laserfish in 2019. The system is mostly implemented. There's a few pieces that are still being implemented and finalized, like the accounts payable invoice automated approval process and the imaging and OCR process that is being finalized. So Laserfish meets all of our required document records retention policies. The Laserfish system will also be integrated with the new Granicus board management system. So there's an interface that Granicus has with Laserfish. So when the Granicus system is implemented, it will automatically interface with Laserfish. And after all the board documents are approved, it will automatically be sent into Laserfish for the records management storage. May I answer any questions on this request?
Any questions for Dan?
Yeah, I have one, Dan. You mentioned the total amount of money, something close to $400,000 for the 5 years. And you said if we went through the 5 years, what happens if we get into it 3 years and decide that we want to do something different? Do we still have to pay that full amount of money, or will it be appropriately reduced?
The contract is written that after the first year, each of the 4 years going forward, it's an option to UTA to exercise each year as a renewal.
Now,
So we could, after 3 years, we could go off and execute another contract with another vendor for maintenance and support.
Now, is that a dollar amount, an annual amount, or is that for the total 5 years?
The 313,000 and change is for 5 years. Annually,
Okay.
it starts off year one at like $59,000 and then goes up about 2,000 a year. So 60,000. And then the last year would
Okay.
be 66,000.
All right.
So it sounds like, Kent, if we didn't exercise options, we wouldn't be obligated to the
Yeah,
full
we wouldn't
amount.
be obligated to pay it. Okay, thank you.
Beth, please.
Thank you. I had a question that is just, I'm just curious as to why, but in the contract, section 14 under governing law is highlighted. Does that mean it's going to change? I just noticed that, and I wasn't sure what the point of the highlight in that one section is.
I don't have that contract in front of me, and it could have been something that was left highlighted by legal, because that's not a section that IT reviews.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll run it past. I know it's Tim Merrill's name is on it, so we'll ask him.
All the contracts have been reviewed by legal and gone through procurement, and so it sounds to me like it's a oversight of removing the highlight.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm really impressed, Beth, that you caught that highlight. But that's why you're smarter than I am. Any questions? Other questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on this Laserfish software maintenance agreement.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the Laserfish software maintenance agreement with Cities Digital Incorporated.
Second?
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Kent. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Yeah. Any opposed? Okay. I didn't hear your voice, Kent. Were you?
Yes, aye.
Okay, aye. Sorry, I just making sure. I didn't hear opposed either. So.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. All's good. Thank you, Dan. I think you're off the hook now.
Thank you.
We'll go on to item C, which is a contract for a light rail seat replacement with United Safety and Survivability Corporation. With that, we'll turn to Eddie Cummings and Kyle Stockley. Morning, Eddie.
Good morning. This is an expense contract with United Safety and Survivability Corporation, also known as USSC, to replace seats on 117 light rail vehicles. Contract amount is $3,993,829, and this contract will expire on December 31st, 2022. As you know, the light rail vehicle fleet currently has fabric-covered cushioned seats. To enhance the interior cleanliness of the light rail vehicle fleet, we are recommending replacing seats with a lightly padded vinyl version. The new seats will be the same arrangement of the current seating configuration. The entire seat will be replaced, including the frame, the cushions, grab handles, and associated mounting hardware. Additionally, the flip-up seats in the priority seating area will now have gas struts, which will assist the passengers when flipping seats up or down. There will be a change in the color of the seats. The priority seating area will be gray with the wheelchair logo inlaid into the vinyl to help our customers identify the priority seating area. The rest of the vehicle will have the regular blue to match UTA's current branding scheme. Installation of these seats for the first 2 car sets will be performed by the vendor to ensure UTA employees are properly trained. The remaining seats will be installed by UTA staff. Are there any questions on this contract?
Eddie, what is this like some items that there's a hard to get, like you order it, but you get to wait months before they come, or do they have these on hand, and do you feel like you'll have a good enough supply chain to install them at the rate in which our folks can replace them?
Yeah, Kyle, do you want to speak to that?
Absolutely. So these are custom made just due to the quantity. The steps going into this is when we first issue the notice to proceed, their engineers will come out and just double check our mounting and safety features of our vehicle. And so once that's complete, then we'll start rolling the seats in, matching with our maintenance department's schedule, so we can get them installed as quickly as possible.
Okay. When do you think do you have a goal to have them all installed by?
By the end of 2022, but I anticipate we'll definitely meet that date and be before that schedule.
Okay. All right. Other questions, though, from the board? Okay. I'm not seeing any. With that, I would entertain a motion on this contract.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the contract with light rail seat replacement with United Safety and Survivability Corporation.
Second.
I have a motion from Kent, seconded by Beth. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
Next item is D, a change order with regarding the South Salt Lake County Microtransit Pilot Extension with River North Transit, LLC, or often we've referred to it as VIA. With that, we'll turn to Jaron Robertson. Good morning, Jaron.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and trustees. Before I start, real quick, just as a reminder, I am here today also scheduled later on today's agenda to talk about the third quarter performance of our microtransit pilot. However, as this part of the agenda, I am here to request that UTA extend the microtransit pilot in partnership with VIA by executing option period number 1 as we defined within the UTA VIA Master Services Agreement. And that's with a not to exceed value of $2,257,500. Just as a quick reminder, without getting too much into the quarter 3 performance, the pilot was intended as a 1-year pilot, which began in November 20th of last year. So we're just about a month out before that pilot expires. However, though, as we reported on a few occasions, that we had really early success with the pilot, meeting several goals and objectives. However, we did experience, as you know, some impacts on the pilot due to COVID-19. When we reported on quarter 2 performance, we did do some analysis and projections that suggested we most likely would have met most or all of the pilot's goals and objectives. And so due to COVID-19, I am here to request that we extend the pilot to the August 2021 change day. And I know that's a little bit untypical, but that's not just to execute a 1-year extension period, but when we designed the Master Services Agreement, as we started in November, what we really wanted to do is if we were to execute an option period, that we'd start aligning with UTA change days and specifically the August change day. So this would, if we execute this extension, this will move us through the August 2021 change date. And then if we were to look towards one other extension, that would be for a full year, which would go from August 2021 to August 2022. And so with that, I can answer any questions that trustees may have.
Jaron, one question I had is, I assume this option to extend was done as part of the original procurement, or did you have to go back out again?
No, that's correct. We did put in 2 option periods as part of the original procurement.
Okay. Other questions on this item? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on this change order.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the change order for the South Salt Lake County Microtransit Pilot Extension with River North Transit LLC or VIA.
Second.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Kent, to approve the change order. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, Darren. We'll look forward to the rest of the discussion later on.
Thank you.
Next item up is a revenue contract change order or a lease addendum number 2 with Greyhound Lines, Inc. And with that, we'll turn to Paul Drake as well as Spencer Burgoyne. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and trustees. Thank you for your time. Can we go to the next slide, Jenna? So we're here to discuss a proposed lease amendment to the lease that we have with Greyhound at the Salt Lake Central Hub. Greyhound, as you know, is a transit provider, and they've been hit pretty hard by the COVID pandemic, both in ridership and cash flow. So they've been contacting landlords across the country, including UTA, to see if they can get rent abatements to help make it through. For context, the original lease was executed in August of 2005, and that was between Greyhound and Salt Lake City. UTA assumed that lease when the property was transferred to us. The premises, would you go back just one, Jenna? Go back one slide if you can. Maybe we can't. Anyway, the premises includes restrooms, waiting area, offices, storage, ticket vending area, bus maintenance facility, bus parking and loading, and then a common area. Okay, if you skip forward a couple, Jenna, to the one that says lease terms, I think it's the
I think, Paul, your thing must be slow because we're seeing the slides you're wanting us to see.
Okay, maybe I'm just slow. Anyway, so here the agreement establishes these basic terms. The compensation includes a one-time payment of about $1.5, and then a monthly payments of about $19,000 a month plus escalations. So the current monthly payment is about $22,500. The current agreement terminates on its own merits in July 31st, 2045. The Greyhound actually has a termination provision as long as they terminate service to Salt Lake County. UTA has no such termination provision, which is a problem as we're currently exploring redevelopment of this site. If we don't have a termination provision, that could be a significant cost to the agency when we do go to redevelop. Next slide, please. The proposed terms of the amendment include a 12-month rent abatement as requested by Greyhound. That's about a $270,000 value. It does add in that termination provision for UTA as long as we give them 90 days notice. It also requires UTA to remove and remediate their underground storage tanks on site, and it waives a $14,000 security reimbursement that UTA had previously owed Greyhound. It also reduces security obligations back to 18 hours a day from 24, and that makes it so that UTA is no longer obligated for those service costs. The board should also know, this was brought to my attention earlier this week, is that there's outstanding litigation with Greyhound unrelated to this amendment. It's related to an incident that happened on the premises in 2014. It's my understanding that the court has heard oral arguments on that, and that we're awaiting final ruling from the court. Anyway, next slide, please. Staff believes that this amendment does offer UTA notable benefits, including that biggest one is the termination right. also allows us to maintain Greyhound in the building and allows them to maintain service to Salt Lake County. Having them in the building saves us maintenance and security costs on an empty building, and it also allows us to keep our UTA customer service in place without significant costs. Anyway, so staff recommends approval of this amendment as is. Are there any questions?
Paul, I had a couple questions. My first one was, when would this take effect? Is Greyhound already technically in arrears in terms of their monthly payments? Or would this be moving forward from the date of the signature of this contract? I'm just not sure where they're at.
This would be just moving forward. They have been paying their rent, so the lease is still valid. They haven't defaulted on their end just yet. But yes, we imagine that once executed, it'd probably go into effect probably November.
November, okay. And then they have, at this point, they have a year's worth of rental abatement. Is there any in there that would have an extension? Is there any language for them to come back in a year and say, we're still not fully recovered from COVID? Could you, continue this? Is that language allowable, or is it just for this year, for a 1 year period?
It's just for the 1 year period. If they did come back with another request and we felt that it was in UTA's best interest, we would come back to the board with a new request.
Great. Thank you. I think that this seems like a good strategy, but I just wanted to ask those questions. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Paul, you mentioned on a previous slide that Greyhound would be responsible for removing their underground storage tanks.
Yes.
Is that
yes,
something
they have,
or is that when they vacate the premises, whenever they vacate the premises, they would have to take their storage tanks?
That's correct, trustee. When they vacate the premises, they would need to remove those and remediate.
Okay, so it's not something that they would do right away.
That's correct. That's correct. They would stay and continue to utilize the facility as is.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I would just point out more for the record, this lease was negotiated during my service tenure on the Salt Lake City Council, but in city government, the ability to do contracts is an executive function, so it falls under the mayor. We don't really see leases, and so and I was aware of the Greyhound lease, but certainly not of the terms. As Paul can attest, I was surprised at the terms, but I didn't want anybody to think that somehow I had direct involvement in the lease that we're considering. So, questions from anybody else?
Well, I did have one more question. Do you know what their service level is? How many riders do they have to Salt Lake County in general? Do we have that information by chance?
I don't have that information. I could get it, but no, I don't have it right now.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions. I would entertain a motion on this revenue contract change order for this lease addendum.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the revenue contract change order lease addendum number 2 with Greyhound Lines Incorporated.
Second.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Kent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Spencer, for your efforts there. With that, we'll turn to pre-procurements with Todd Mills in his fancy office space.
That's right. I'm in my fancy office today. Good morning, Mr. Chair and trustees. We do have 2 procurements that we are ready to go out for. The first one is an environmental review and design of the Front Runner South double tracking. This is a procurement to establish a contract with an engineering firm to assist UTA with environmental review and conceptual design of Front Runner double tracking on the Front Runner South corridor. Based on the future of Front Runner study, the segments between the South Jordan and Draper stations and between the Lehigh 2100 North and S curve were identified as priority segments for double track to improve the reliability of service. Environmental review and conceptual design are needed to make these projects shovel ready to apply for construction funding. This will be procured using federal procurement requirements for future federal funding opportunities, and the projects are included in the 5-year capital budget. This will be procured as an RFP where selection will be based on the firm's qualifications in addition to price. And I do have Autumn Hu on the call with us as well to answer any specific questions you might have on the project.
The one question I have, whether it's Autumn or is it only on these two segments? Like if we do more work on the double tracking, would we basically have to go out to get another environmental firm to do any remaining environmental assessments?
I'll refer to Autumn to answer that maybe.
Hi, thank you for the question. I'm Autumn Hu with UTA and Administrator. For the contract, it would be just for the two segment that we're talking about. If we were to do additional work, it would have to be through a different contract.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for either Autumn or Todd on this one? Okay, I think we're good there, Todd.
Okay, and the next one is JD Edwards Software Support and Maintenance. So it's going to be a sole source procurement with Oracle America Incorporated to provide software support, maintenance, and updates for our ERP system. JD Edwards is the backbone of UTA data and information processing and is used in areas such as accounting, asset management, human resources, maintenance, property management, and supply chain. Oracle is the OEM for this software and are the only vendor who can provide this level of support and the updates that are associated with it. This contract will be for 5 years, payable on an annual basis, and has been included in the IT budget. We have Dave Snyder on here as well for specific questions related to this one.
Todd, I mean, we're pretty much married at the hip with JD Edwards. The question I guess I have is this actually an open procurement, or it becomes a sole source?
It is a sole source, and that's based on Oracle is the one that develops the updates that come out for the different modules. And I don't know if Dave, if you want to add to that at all.
Let's see, Dave, you're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, this is Dave. So, Mr. Chair, I mean, there are other resellers, but basically the resellers that we have contacted basically go back to Oracle for pricing.
Yeah. So we don't necessarily save much dollar-wise.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, Oracle sets the pricing.
Yeah. And I totally understand. I just wanted to clarify. Any questions, though, from the board on this one?
I did have one question. The JD Edwards, can you state again when do you think that this will kind of be integrated or done, completed?
Well, it's ongoing. So we have had a support and maintenance contract, which is expiring this year. And so this is just to establish a new contract for the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this pre-procurement? Okay. I think we're there. Thanks, Todd, and thanks, Dave, for your help.
Thank you.
And Autumn as well. We'll go to, I'm wondering if, just because the next two discussion items may take a few minutes, maybe let's take a 10-minute break. It's 10:10, and let folks take a break here in a second, and then we'll come back at 10:20 for the full discussion. So is that going to work for staff and Eric and things? Okay. We'll be back at 10:20. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we do. Well, welcome. Thank you, Andrea. Yes, we're welcome you back from our break, and we're going to return to our discussion items, which the first item up is a discussion on the South Salt Lake I should say county, in their microtransit pilot project number 3 report, as well as some survey results. And with that, we'll bring Jaron Robertson back. Welcome back, Jaron.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair and trustees. As noted, we're here to talk about the third quarter performance and some other great things that we accomplished during that period. As a quick note, that quarter 3 performance is June, July, and August of this year, so we have a little bit of a lag, but again, I'm excited to talk about a few things, including our survey results that we conducted during this time frame. And so if you wouldn't mind advancing to the next slide. And the next slide, sorry. Again, so we, as part of our evaluation of the microtransit pilot, really wanted to gather qualitative data about the pilot. We consistently gather metrics and performance data on a daily basis. So we have a lot of quantitative data, but we really want to know what our customers and community thinks that regarding the service, and get that type of data to really help us make good decisions as we continue with the service. So in late July and early August, we targeted about 1,600 microtransit riders as part of the survey. Unfortunately, we did this during COVID, and it does make it a little bit more challenging to conduct a survey, and especially over that time frame. And so as we targeted those 1,600 riders, we only received about a 5% response rate, unfortunately, with that. But however, I do think we did get some good information and actionable items that we will move forward with. Just as a quick caveat to this, they were self-selecting in the survey, and so there's always a chance that someone simply took the survey just because they wanted to give us good feedback, as we saw in this, because they wanted the service to continue. But with that, we have what we have, and so we were able to do some analysis on the information and then make some recommendations. So next slide, please. What we continue to see as part of the survey, and what we see on a regular basis with the service, is that we get mostly positive feedback. Out of that 5%, we received about 88% positive feedback on all of the information received, which translate into basically an overall rating of 4.8 out of 5. That's the same type of customer feedback customers are able to give within the app upon completing a ride, and that has really been consistent throughout the entire time frame of the pilot. And so as you can see, some of our top themes here, the service is convenient, affordable, is good, is easy, and is accessible. And so really good feedback on those type issues. If you'll move to the next slide, please. We did try to get a good understanding of what is most needed from our customers as we continue with the service. And you can see the top item is expanded coverage, or weekend service, or expanded hours. And that is really pretty consistent actually with the comments we receive either online or through our customer service center as well. People loving the service and wanting more of it. And so we continue to see that theme during this customer survey. You see some other items such as shorter wait time, shorter walking distances. Those are parameters that we have the ability to control within the parameters that we set within the app. There's not a lot of requests for that, because in general, and especially during COVID times, there's just not a lot of wait time and not a long walking distance. We set those parameters right now at an average max wait time of 15 minutes. And when you compare that to bus service, I mean, that's fantastic service. And then an average walking distance of just a quarter mile. And generally what we see, again, throughout services, those are high numbers. It's generally less than that. And then just a few other enhancements, which actually we can talk about later in this report, such as integrated fares, electric vehicles, or shorter ride duration. There were some negative feedbacks as noted, and some of that comes with maybe our pickup and drop-off locations, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And again, maybe those long wait times. If you advance the next slide, please. So one of our findings really yielded is that there is a mode shift from actually driving a personal vehicle or using a TNC or ride-hailing service to the microtransit service. As we know, during pre-COVID, majority of our trips were going to a transit center where our customers were most likely switching modes to maybe Trax or FrontRunner. And pre-COVID or post-COVID or as we sit today, mid-COVID, a lot of those trips stay locally. So they're using the service to stay within the service center that we, or service area that we've defined. Another interesting finding that we found is that 90% of all the survey respondents are already UTA users, and so they use it if they've used bus or rail service at some point in the past, and so that really opened up our eyes to know that we do have a lot of work to look for new customers as part of this service. And it's something that we were working on prior to COVID hitting, but obviously with COVID, we have actually suspended all marketing efforts. So as we look to, and probably hopefully 2021, we're very hopeful, relaunch marketing and promotions of the service. Obviously, there's a lot of opportunity to look to attract and retain new riders as part of this service. Additionally, we did ask about COVID-19 in general and how customers respond to that. We saw that half of the respondents have actually still used the microtransit service during COVID-19, and then they were very well aware of our efforts to improve safety of the service during COVID-19. And so we got a lot of positive feedback on that as well. In response to, as I noted, there are a lot of opportunities to really make improvements based upon this survey. And so we are already working with VIA based upon our findings to make improvements to the service. And some of those issues really, again, are looking to provide better clarity. As noted, we ask our customers to walk to meet the service. And so some of the challenges may be that people don't understand where they're being asked to walk to. And so we're looking to make enhancements within the application so they may get better information or instructions on where they need to go to meet the vehicle. Just real quick, some of the other challenges that we may see is just the mapping within the app. And so it may not there may be some problem areas, or it may not accurately reflect some of the environment that's within the actual community. And so the map may think, for example, there might be a crosswalk in a certain area. And so the vehicle may be able to drop them off on one side of the road when they need to get to the other side of the road. And so we're actually going through some of the most popular corridors within the service area and making sure we have a good understanding of what's there and what's not there, so that we can enhance the mapping and make sure we have a better and safer system for actually picking up and dropping off customers. And so there's just a couple quick examples of ways we can make improvements. And then we work with VIA, and we have several areas that we're addressing right now. So I have some other items I want to talk about as well, but that concludes the survey portion. And so I don't know if you want to take any questions quickly, or I should just move on.
Well, I do have some questions, Jared, and if you're going to address them later on, feel free to say so. And as I looked at the results, and first of all, I'm actually quite pleased with this sort of really hitting a market that I would term non-consumption. Folks who have not historically used our system, at least on the flex route side, and which does tell you it's meeting a need. We thought about weekend or late night service, maybe not quite at a 15-minute pickup period, but maybe it's 20 or 25 minutes. Because I could see if somebody was in a healthcare thing and had a late shift, and they take tracks home and want to get back to their house, and they don't get there till 10 o'clock at night or something. That's problematic for them. Or if they have to work on a weekend or something, you wouldn't need quite the level that we have maybe in the peak time hours. Have we thought about even though we were trying to do it matched hand to hand with Flex service, have we thought about having some variation there?
I think that's a great question, and as you can see, those are, as I mentioned, those are a lot of questions we get. And you also mentioned, you also said, as part of the pilot, we just determined to establish the same operating hours and days as the Flex routes in the service. Which is, I think, one of the challenges is that track service or front run service runs later and earlier. At least it did prior to COVID, and I still believe it does. And so when we think about it as a first and last mile solution, when this service stops earlier or starts later, we don't quite get the benefit of really utilizing it to its maximum potential. But that being said, we really can look at how the service parameters could change after hours. And so just like you said, going beyond 9 o'clock at night, for example, we could reduce vehicle capacity and have a parameter that says it may be a longer pickup or wait time, in for example, 20 minutes, which you get a vehicle. And it allows us to, again, reduce costs of the service, pull vehicles out, and still provide some level of service. And so we haven't made any type of decisions on whether we should proceed with that or not, but knowing that that is one of our top requests, I think that we should probably talk about that is we go into 2021 and continue the pilot, and then think about if in August 2021 is the next option period comes to an end, is if we were to make this a permanent service, should we make those type of adjustments? And I think that we'll have better data and information to help us make those decisions, but I think absolutely yes, we should take those into consideration.
I mean, my thought is we've extended the pilot through August. I think we're already seeing that it's a very comparable thing for our Flex routes. So I don't know that we need to hold ourselves restricted to those windows. And yet I'm sensitive to the cost thing. And it seems like it would be good to test that out, through the remainder of the test period, but just to see whether that, helps increase ridership and use of it. So.
Well, I appreciate that feedback. I think with that, we can work with our service planning team and be able to talk about what are our opportunities to potentially test or pilot some late night or weekend service as part of the next phase of this.
Yeah. Questions though at this stage? If not, we let you go forward. Not seeing one, so why don't you continue on? Great.
If you'll advance the slide, please. This is one of the most exciting things I get to talk about today. We are about to embark on the next phase of fare payment system with VIA, which will begin next Monday, October 26th. And this was a great collaboration, just so you know, between our fares department, Innovative Mobility Solutions, our IT department, and VIA to look for ways to validate our electronic fare products within the VIA app. And so to give you some background, just as a reminder, when we launched the service, making this really testing it as a mode of public transit, we wanted to give our customers access to use the service with current payment methods. At the time of launching the service, it's very, very, very challenging to put fare validators in the VIA vehicles for many reasons. And so what decision we made to do at the time was just do a visual inspection. And so within the VIA app, basically what you could have done is select an option that says, I have an electronic fare payment transfer or ticket, and then select that payment method. And then what you would do is book your trip request, and then you would be required just to show the driver that fare product. It's very challenging for the drivers. They're not UTA drivers, they're VIA drivers, and they don't know our fare payment systems in depth. And even though they had the information, I think it was challenging for them to know if it was a valid or invalid card, or was it even actually a UTA product. And so over the course of the last several months, we've worked with IT and fares and VIA to look for ways to actually incorporate validation into the VIA app. And so using our EFCX system, we were able to provide a API system to VIA to where now, if you see on the right side of the screen, you see a credit card option and a UTA electronic card option. The customer can now go in and select that UTA electronic card option as a payment method and simply just input the face value on their EFC card or Fair Pay card. Then that become their default payment, if so be. And what happens is when they make a trip request through our backend system, that fare product is validated right there on the spot. And so should they have a valid EFC or Fair Pay card, they're immediately notified that they can make that trip request on that card. And we now have the data and know that that card is valid. All of our other standard rules apply too. And so should a customer then use VIA to transfer to FrontRunner and they go tap, or let's use Trax since it's the same cost. If they go tap on the Trax, it's already going to see that they've made that first leg of the trip, and then our transfer rules apply, and we have all that data. And so this is really an incredibly great enhancement to the service that we're ready to pilot and test beginning next week as we incorporate Fair Pay and EFC into the service. I should note that we weren't able to take Fair Pay prior to this because we didn't have a way of deducting that value. We did take other EFC cards such as Eco Passes and Student Passes. With that, the two things that we still can't accept on the service is cash and tokens. Outside of that, we do believe this is one of the first systems in the country to pilot and test EFC incorporation into a third-party service. And this is really the beginning or first steps in what we see as a mobility as a service concept, where we work with the private sector, incorporating fare validation into a third-party app. And so this is just a really exciting advancement for the pilot. We can't wait to pilot and test it and work through it over the next year to see how this really helps us enhance the service with using UTA passes.
Jaron, I had a question. And I just wanted to have you explain the distinction between, on the previous slide, it says that about 98% of the riders had a UTA, they were already existing UTA customers in some fashion. But the way that it's broken down by fare payment, it doesn't look like that. Is that because of that Fair Pay and these other models that are incorporated within that? Because when you look at those numbers, it looks like only 72%-ish have a existing connection to UTA's past programs.
Yeah, thank you. And I should have clarified that up front. So in the survey, what we found, it wasn't necessarily a payment method. It was saying that 98% of the respondents have already used a UTA service such as bus or FrontRunner or Trax or rail service. With this fare payment by type, what we've consistently seen throughout the service is that when someone selects a payment method, 72% of our customers are saying that they have some sort of UTA Pass product, although we don't know what that is. And so we never had the data. And so this is why it's really important for us to be able to incorporate this feature into the service, because if 70% of our riding customers have some sort of pass product, we need to start getting data and really start validating that service. And so it's not quite the same, but that's just showing that, with the service, 27% of our customers are using a credit card, while the majority are using some sort of either paper ticket or pass product. I hope that clarified that.
It did, thank you. And that does make sense. And I agree. I think having access to the data is going to be even more helpful as we move forward, trying to continue to integrate it with the communities that it currently serves. So thanks.
Yeah. And I'll talk about this in the next slides, is we've seen a really high usage of our wheelchair accessible vehicles. And as you know, anyone who's paratransit eligible has that freedom access pass. And we don't have a good concept of who's using those vehicles, whether they're paratransit customers or not. And this is another example where we'll get a better understanding of who's using the service and how they're using the service. So really going to help us with data of the service and enhancement for our customers.
That leads me to another question. You said that you had a higher than expected utilization of the wheelchair access. What was the expectation, and how do you judge that against what are you judging that against?
So in our performance metrics, we looked at, and I can talk about this as we move on, but I'm happy to talk about it now too. We looked at, as we put together metrics for the service, we looked at actual ramp deployments on fixed route service as a percentage of passenger trips. And we saw about, I believe it's 3 to 5% of fixed route trips see some sort of deployment of a ramp. Now that doesn't tell us per se that they're using a wheelchair, but they may have some sort of mobility device or mobility issue, so they need the ramp to board the vehicle. And so we wanted to see the same type of percentage rates on the VIA service. And so we set that metric as a percentage of ridership on the service. Additionally, we looked at programs across the country as we looked to establish performance metrics, and it's not, unless this was strictly a paratransit type service, which it's not, there are generally not a lot of wheelchair accessible trips that we saw in other programs across the country. And so we didn't expect to see a level that we see today. And so in Q3, we actually, we provided 331 wheelchair accessible trips using those vehicles. And that is such a highlight of the service as we provide better mobility solutions to the community for people who may have not had many options in the first place. And if they did, it's typically expensive trips that they may have to take. And so this is really a highlight of the service as we look to improve mobility. And when we look at some of our customer feedback that we receive just through UTA's customer service department, it's some of the most heartwarming and best comments we receive are people who talk about how this has changed our lives because they have mobility options that they never had before. So again, we see these high usage of wheelchair accessible vehicles, and we just don't have a good sense today of who's using them. And so I think with this EFC integration, we'll get a better sense of who is using them.
Thanks, that's helpful.
Great. Any other questions regarding the fare integration? I can, just a few more things I wanted to talk about before we wrap this up.
Yeah, why don't we go forward?
Okay, next slide, please. I'm just going to provide a quick summary of performance of Q3. Obviously, the board's aware that COVID-19 has had an impact on the service. But again, working with our VIA partners, we've been able to actually reduce operational costs and provide a very good level of service during Q3 performance. And so quickly, I think another quick note too is we haven't changed any of our metrics that were originally established during this pilot. We will reevaluate what our metrics are going into 2021. But you can see Q3, actually we hit basically the same level of ridership and average weekday ridership as we did Q2. What I should highlight though is Q2 started in March where we had really great ridership, and that's also Q2 where the bottom fell out too with COVID. And so we saw record low levels of ridership too. And so Q3, we've actually seen really good consistent growth as people return. And so I think month over month, we see about on average a 16% increase in ridership. And so we're seeing people come back to the service. And so I'm hopeful in Q4, we see even higher levels at this point. Right there, you can see our utilization for wheelchair accessible vehicles at 3% of all ridership per trip request. Our utilization is how many passengers per hour we carry per vehicle, and that is low, and that is because we have set social distancing requirements, and so we're just not carrying as many customers per vehicle as we actually could. Our cost per rider has gone down a little bit since Q2, but it is higher than anticipated, or I shouldn't say anticipated, it is higher than we wanted it to be, just as part of the project in general. Our goal was 20% below the cost of the current flex routes, which that establishes a 13.8 rate. You can see Q1 we did quite well. It's just a launch of the service. And again, as we projected in Q2, we did think we would hit that, but in reality, they are higher than we would like at this point. And finally, again, our operating cost for Q3, our budget was $486,000. You can see we're just about $140,000 below budget, and mostly that is simply because we were able to implement operational efficiencies during COVID. Had we hit the performance level that we had anticipated, I think we would have been more in line with that budget. But it's a great way for us to right-size service and reduce costs and still provide good quality service because it's flexible and dynamic. Just one quick one, if you'll advance to the next slide, just a final, there is a quick overview of ridership. Obviously, March 2020, you can see that drop due to COVID, but you can see we're getting some rebound in ridership as we move into I keep saying post-COVID, we're in COVID, but post-March, I guess. Okay, just one final slide, just talking about next steps here. Again, we continue on a monthly basis to make improvements and evaluate the service. And so we continue to do that and continue to work with VIA to make sure we're providing the best service possible at the most effective, in the most effective way. We are currently in the middle of what we're calling a pilot program for in-cabin safety solutions. And to simply put this is very much like our smart drive system that we have on our fixed route bus service. VIA is piloting it in Utah and Texas to see if this can improve safety and really help the customer experience, help with incidents and accidents. And so, again, much like our smart drive system, we now have a camera inside the vehicle that covers inside of the vehicle, and then one that faces forward outside the vehicle. And VIA is able to use that, again, in very much the same parameters that we're using for our systems. That is a pilot program, so VIA will run that and then make a decision about how they move forward. One of the big objectives for us is to continue to enhance paratransit to microtransit connections. This is really about first and last mile connections in the paratransit service, and it's very different than taking someone to a rail station where they're going to meet a tractor front runner. This is about timing the vehicles so that a customer who is paratransit eligible can use VIA and connect to a paratransit service when they need to leave the service area. And so we're working with VIA and our paratransit department to implement some technology solutions that we can pre-schedule a VIA trip specifically for a paratransit customer who's going to make a transfer and make sure that those vehicles align in a good time and fashion. So make sure we're operationally efficient, and most importantly, that our customers don't have big lag times between transferring from a VIA vehicle to a paratransit vehicle or vice versa. And so we'll look to begin that testing hopefully here in the 1st of November and really help to fine tune that and make sure that that system is solid and ready to deploy on a full-time basis early next year. Quickly, I mentioned the fare validation, so we'll evaluate that over the next year. And then as we look to implement our 5-year service plan, there may be some ways that we need to evaluate some just minor boundary changes that might where some gaps may be created because of service changes throughout the next the course of that service plan. And finally, as we already discussed, thank you for your approval. We'll be extending this pilot through April or August 2021. And with that, I can answer any further questions.
Great, thank you, Darren. Any other questions from the board? Well, we're excited to see how the next few months turn out, and are encouraged in what we see. So thank you, Darren, for your presentation. Our next item up is item B, Airport Track Station Relocation Project Update. We'll turn to Mary Delaretto and Andrea Paulus. And Andrea, welcome. I think this is your first time subjecting yourself to the board. So Mary?
Hi, good morning. So as you all know, with the reconstruction taking place at the airport, UTA needs to move our airport track station, and that project is progressing very well. And Andrea Poulos is the project manager over that project, and we thought now would be a good time to give you an update of that project and show you some pictures of how that's moving along. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrea for her presentation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Mr. Chair and trustees. Go easy on me because it is my first one. This is just a quick overview of what is going on out at the airport. We're not quite halfway through the construction yet. Right now, you can see this is what it is going to look like. It's just a quick schematic. Where this is at, I've got this drawing up here. Sorry, you can go to the next slide. Where this is at is you can see the old terminal over on the right that's kind of in a arch shape. And then the new terminal is got the blue line pointing to it. And that's every single trip anybody takes at this point, you now go through the new terminal. You don't go through the old terminal. You may still go to the old gates, but you still have to go through the new terminal. So they opened this up on September 15th with that arm off to the left. That is the gates that are currently open. At the very top of the screen, you can actually see another set of another set of gates that will be open later this year. To have people get off halfway up the line, we did have to create a temporary platform. It is a wood platform that has some shelters, and we have 2 lines, and we have enough for 4 cars to get there. It was completed on time in order to start operating on the 15th when the new terminal was opened. Currently, all trains are going to the east platform. The airport is actually doing a new 3700 that is parallel to our line. That garage needs to come down, which it has come down. For one area, and then we still have to put our track in there. So this is what we're kind of calling the mixing area. These are some of our biggest obstacles with this because we are actually working in the same area at the same time as the airport contractor, HD. We, when they're taking down the garage, they're worried about obstacles falling and hurting people. And so it's been kind of a really tricky situation through there, but it's come along. They've gotten the first part of that down, so we should be a little bit of clear sailing through here. Also in this area, some of the issues that they were not going to be dealing with from the airport side that they were going to do a little later when we were out of their way has been speeded up thanks to COVID. Thanks to COVID, they're able to tear down the whole terminal in one fell swoop. So they're gearing up for that, and they've changed their schedules a little bit. So that is impacting our schedule to some degree. Right now, we don't think it's a big issue. It should still be okay, and we'll talk about the schedule a little bit later. Next slide, please. These are a little bit more recent pictures of the platform. This is the embedded rail. You can see on the left of the screen is actually in place. About 3/4 of it is complete. There's one section that is in that mixing area that we're just getting to now. Where all that rebar is, that's where the snow melt is, and we are going to put that on top of it and keep going. If you go to the next slide, you can see that same rebar area now has concrete on it and has the tactile strip for ADA compliance. And as of today, most of that middle area is also got all the concrete in. So the permanent platform is pretty much done. If you'd like to go to the next slide. And then this is just another view of it showing them putting the tactile on. it's a nice view. You can see the airport from here. You can see how close we are. Once the road gets constructed and the final footings are done right next to the building for the canopies, and the canopies are moved, you can see that 1A in the middle. That will be, so those guys are walking, which the walk is not much further than it was before. So I think it's going very well. After the first couple of weeks, we had some things to work through, but I think we've got those handled now, and I haven't seen any complaints.
Let me go to questions. It looks like Kent maybe has one.
Yeah, just a comment, not really a question. When I usually ride the front runner up from Utah County, coming back home, I will sometimes see people with obviously they've been traveling. They've got their roller bags with them, so I will question them. How was the transition given the construction that's going on? And while I've had a couple of people say, "Gee, it's not nearly as convenient as it used to be," almost everybody says we walk out, we can get a bus back over to the green line pretty easily. Maybe take us a little longer, but it's really quite convenient. And then I explained to them that it's going to be right up next to the terminal when this gets done next summer. And they're all looking forward to that. But I haven't had any real complaints from people that I've talked to that are using that system. So it seems to be working well.
That's great. The shuttle time is really about 7 minutes to get you from the terminal back to, if even that long, to get back to the track. So that's pretty good. And as I said, we will be looking at making sure we keep an eye on numbers. If we start seeing that we don't have enough buses, if we see that if traffic really picks up, there's other options we can talk about. Once the MTC opens, we'll be talking about that, because we want to make sure that people are feeling safe on these shuttles and comfortable, and not putting them in a adverse situation with COVID.
Well, it seems to be coming along really good. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Hi, Andrea. Nice job on your first presentation, by the way. Well done. I don't really have a question either. I'm just excited to see this obviously moving forward. And I did think that we were going to have a little bit more of a faster clip, but nonetheless, I do understand construction can sometimes be challenging. Because I thought since the airport, had such a decrease in the number of travelers that it might help us to get a little bit ahead of our timeline. But I guess I do have a question. Are you seeing a decline in the number of riders as a whole? And is that just a reflection of travelers? I guess it's hard to know, isn't it?
It is hard to know. I don't think we've declined much from when we shifted to the temporary platform. The numbers seem to be pretty steady. We will be keeping an eye on with the airport themselves when they start seeing more planes coming in and more ridership on their system. We'll definitely keep an eye on that and see how it translates to ours. I think people are just slowly becoming comfortable with getting on a plane and going to the airport. So it's probably going to take them a little bit of time to get comfortable getting on a train and then going to the airport and dealing with all of that. So I think we'll have a little bit of lag behind what actual flights handle. But yeah, the biggest issue with the airport is we got delayed just a little bit so that they could keep moving and the airport could keep moving. But now that COVID has hit, what it has done is it's actually accelerated their project and changed their schedule up. And so one of the comments I heard from their superintendent was that they had 5 big change orders that all had to be done by October. And this was since September 15th when they opened, where all that stuff was planned to be done probably in January or February. So since they're tearing everything down, they still have all the utility work in our area, and that's our biggest detriment, is in that mixing area. They have a very deep sewer line and a storm drain and everything else, but we are actually going to focus all our work and make sure our crews stay busy working on the new platform and get that 90% done, where before it was probably going to be about 70% done. And then we were going to go work on the track work, and now we're going to focus on that so that we can let HD get out of our way, and then come next year we can just start laying track.
Thank you. That's good information on that, on top of your presentation.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions for Andrea? That was a great update, and for the record, both Beth and Kent are lovely people. So
I like the mean moniker. It does sound like it could have some fun with that.
Well, I think with that brings us to the conclusion. I don't have any other items unless anybody else we're missing anything. I would just note that our next meeting will be October 28th at 9 o'clock, and we're going to go into a closed session and for the discussion of pending or reasonably imminent litigation and the purchase, exchange, lease, or sale of real property if the public discussion in the transaction would prevent the public body from completing the transaction on the best possible terms. And that will be held in a separate session, and we'll just take leave from this WebEx. With that, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. Chair, I move we go to closed session.
Second.
I have a motion from Kent, seconded by Beth. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll take a recess and we'll be back shortly. We've returned from our closed session, and a reminder that we do have a meeting next Wednesday on the 28th. With that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Beth, seconded by Kent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thanks, everybody, and thanks, staff, for a great job done. Have a great day.